What's up, y'all? Today's the 14th of October 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is how we do it, right? Blunt, bold, raw, real, In the Image Clothing Company style. I'm gonna say that because I know that there's surrounding sounds, and at least before I started recording, there was that. I think they're cutting cinder blocks for a building. But we do it as we do, right? It's about the information, it's about documenting time periods, and I'm gonna just film this regardless. If it's pretty noisy, that's okay. So, PF Flyers from Converse, that's what these shoes are. No affiliation, at least as of right now, with Converse and In the Image Clothing Company, but just credit where I do, so that showing these throughout this video, you'll know what they are. So, yes, this video is titled, Always Stop Lacing at Ankle Flexion, and we'll get into it. We've got a lot of videos talking about the feet, talking about shoes, what's required in shoes. If you know us at all, one of our two what we call prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company is our shoe lacing technique, just the only way the human feet are shaped, right? We're just weaving a rope across the top of them. There's only one way we can do that without altering the feet's mechanics, with those gripped arches that grip inward, opposing the center line, keeping us vertical on Earth's gravity. We've got videos talking about the importance of even ankle flexion, both pointing the toes, which is plantar flexion, and then lifting the toes, which is dorsiflexion. There's a lot of videos we've got around shoes, laces, tags in shoes. Okay. But we'll get into this. This video is really big, very similar in ways to the importance of even plantar and dorsiflexion, what we discussed in that video, the importance of even ankle flexion. But the ankles also have a lot of other motion. They have rotations. They have just a lot of motion, as you can see here. If you heard my ankle click, it did. So we'll get into the importance of this, right? It's not titled the importance of, like a lot of our videos are, but always stop lacing right where the ankle flexes, okay? And I'll show it in a lot of ways. I'll discuss it deeply and thoroughly. So yes, always stop lacing at ankle flexion. But we'll do this, right? As I do, I'll talk about each of the four sides of In the Image Clothing Company. We'll talk about where clothing sits, and then we'll really get into this, and I'll discuss it thoroughly. Context, ideally round laces. That's one of the things we talk about with shoelaces. These are flat. These are what came in these, but they're kind of like vintage shoes. They're kind of older, and these laces are much more round than they are just flat. And then also, these shoes are actually about a half size too small for me. just context. But I got them used, and they're great in the ways that they are for what I use them for. Okay, so let's get into this. The main side of In the Image Clothing Company, that's where we are here. What we do is allow the human body to work. That's our slogan, because the human body is something we can never train. There's just a center line to the body. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and our jaw. The jaw naturally stabilizes not only the head on top of our body, but our entire body from, well, our toes all the way up to the tip of our head, the tips of our fingers, because there's musculature that goes from the lower jawbone all the way up between the eyes and ears to the crown of the head. Okay, we talk about things like eating, sleeping, standing, walking, breathing, hydration, everything we do as a human being, just doing it naturally. The goal is natural, and so we can only allow God's design of the human being, designed in the image clothing company, right? In the image of Jesus Christ is how we are designed and who we're designed by. There's only one way the human body could ever work. It's just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, and there's a neutral position to every joint. Everything. A neutral wrist, straight out from the outside of the forearm, down the pinky finger, and then motion all outside of that. Neutral to rotations, both internal and external rotation, in all the ways that the body has rotations. Okay, so, there's only one way the human body could ever work. I said it, but that's what we say a lot here, at least I do. At least I have, up until today's date, okay? And today's date is the 14th of October, 2025. I know I said it, but there's only one way the body could work. Clothing's placed on the body. It has to stay centered, fit correct, where I'll discuss here in a minute when I talk about where clothing sits, and be made from 100% natural materials. Materials in themselves alter the body, sometimes from the inside out. They're one of those things that just didn't even exist decades back from today's date, and then ever before then. Unnatural materials that clothing is often made out of nowadays in the modern man-made world, placed onto God's natural earth, as I word it, okay? And that's what damages us, is this modern man-made world. These materials can seep into our pores. The way you place a cream on top of the body, even like deworming animals, right? A lot of dewormers, you just put it on the surface of the body of the animal and it goes into the body. So these materials can seep into our bodies and damage them. But also, often what comes with these unnatural materials in clothing is stretch. Stretch in clothing goes the opposite direction of the only way muscles could ever work. All musculature in the body only contracts, meaning getting shorter. There's opposing muscles, and so like the bicep here, shortening to close the elbow joint. The opposing muscles, the triceps, shorten to extend the elbow joint. So stretch in clothing is damaging the body greatly. Stretching the body is damaging. If you stretch outside of one of the neutrals, well, you've gone too far from the neutral, and on the other side, we need evenness. There's just only neutrals to everything. Neutral, natural, and normal are synonyms within the human body as we discuss it, okay? Under In the Image Clothing Company, that's what we do. We discuss the anatomy of the human body in depth and show how to allow it to work and why it's not in a modern man-made 2025 and going forth. We also live in a right-handed world. Products that are designed to be used for 85%, give or take, of the population of right-handed human beings is the point. It's a much smaller percentage of people that are left-handed, so we live in this right-handed world. Clothing patterns, to the degree that they are right-handed. When we introduce ropes to the body, shoelaces, we'll talk about that in this video. That's what this video is about specifically, is shoelacing. Drawstrings, right? Potentially we're just rotating the entire body with these knots of ropes that are just twisting the body with one side tied over the other. Oversized clothing, pulling down on the body, damaging it. Imbalances in clothing, just uncentered when the musculature of the body connects from the outside of the shoulder to the center in the front at the sternum on both sides, and then from the outside of the shoulder to the spine in the center of the rear of the body on both sides. So our bodies just have to be even. They have to stay centered. Earth's center of gravity that it pulls down on everything with has to mesh with the body's center line where the musculature connects to. Okay, arches in the feet grip inward toward the center. The inner leg muscles, called adductors, come and connect to the center. Okay, the center line of the body, that's where the strength is in its center line. Okay, so that's a lot of explanation of what we do, but a lot of free modifications in clothing, and then we will always have In the Image Clothing Company clothing doing the main things, right? Staying centered, fitting correct, and allowing the body to work by being made from 100% natural materials, okay? Yes, so that's a lot of what we do here on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. But a lot of discussions as well, just on the body itself. Even aside from clothing, if we never wore clothing, the body would just work, right? It's designed by God to just work on the earth. Designed to work is what it is. So yeah, we have another fourth of us, In the Image Clothing Company poodles. We do the same thing we do for human beings when it comes to allowing the body to work, but we phrase it, letting dogs stay natural. It's just a whole other fourth of our company, so it has its own slogan, but it's the same intent, okay? Dogs are placed in this modern man-made world as well, and they are being altered in the ways that they are. These birds are up on this light. I could hear their little feet on the metal. So, slippery, flat, unnaturally textured, meaning not so textured flooring is altering the dog's joints, okay? And they're slipping around and potentially just hurting their bodies. We talk about hydration and feeding for dogs. We specialize in purebred standard poodles. specifically, but our information applies to all dogs besides the very specific to poodle things, like maybe grooming things or temperament things that would be specific to poodles. We give a lot of free information though, as we do for the human body, and we talk about keeping collars centered, right? Like us human beings, there's musculature going through the collar of our top, through our necks, and dog collars are usually much more imbalanced than human being collars. So we will always have products for dogs that apply to all dogs: collars, leashes, harnesses, similar things, with the same intent behind human being clothing, staying centered and just not altering the dogs, okay? We talk about things like interacting with our dogs as owners so our bodies don't get altered, like holding leashes, right? Keeping our bodies centered, keeping less dogs in shelters and more dogs at homes. We do a lot of advocating for things like proper breeding. When we breed purebred standard poodles, we show it under the gift of video. We do so much through the gift of video, but we advocate for being good owners of dogs and just a lot of things with dogs and the health of them that comes from proper breeding, purebred dogs and planned litters, right? We really get into it deeply with dogs, and we'll have events always, and where we do poodle parade events is what we call them, just having a good time, hanging out. I call them family reunion type things. Bring your poodles that are purebred of any size or poodle mixes of any size. And here in the state of Utah, the United States of America, the reason why I'm pointing over my shoulders is because we have mountains and a lot of them. We have a lot of beautiful nature. We can do specific types of poodle parade events geared in specific ways. Clean the creek poodle parade events. For the environment, we can actually clean up trash out of riverways with our dogs there. When I say riverways, I mean waterways, but rivers, lakes, ponds. We've got things in Utah that are beautiful. Okay, I love the nature here. I love dogs, specifically standard size purebred poodles. Okay, so we get into it and we do a lot for the environment, for dogs, for the owners of dogs, and that'll allow us, and it does through all that we do, to work with other organizations and companies doing similar things for the health of dogs, right? So we really get into it. In the Image Clothing Company, poodles will always be a huge name in poodles and just dogs in general for the sake of our information that we give. So yeah, so stick around, okay? It'll be really, really, really huge. I mean, we can work with shelters and we can work with like dog companies in the ways that you'll see. I want to explain it, but you'll just see. Giving context as of now, okay? So there you go. In the Image Clothing Company podcast, another one of our fourths, we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. We get in depth with it. We're on episode 167 as of last night, actually. And we just talk about the truth of all things. That's what the gospel of Jesus Christ is. There's no religion to preach or push, but we're all human beings, the same thing, placed on the same earth, designed by one God. We discuss him there as he says that he is, although never perfectly. But check it out. There's a lot of beautiful insights on life, regardless of who you are and where you're from. Okay? So, in the Image Clothing Company music, the last fourth to mention here, a lot of what I show is the sizing and setup of guitars to not alter our neutral wrist. Okay? That travels through our whole body and damages our body greatly. I make a lot of music. I do a lot of lyricism geared around the gospel of Jesus Christ, rhythm and poetry, right? Rap, spoken word type music. We're on episode 31 of what's called Metronome Madness, where I just go off the top, meaning just freestyle lyricism, but singing, instrument setup, yeah, tutorials on things, a lot of music with a lot of good, as I say, insights on life. I mean, that's the point of us making music with any kind of like lyrics in it at all, is really, I mean, we do a lot here under In the Image Clothing Company, more than just for the body of the human being, more than just for the body of the dogs, but just life. I mean, I actually give a lot of wisdom, if you will, if I'm self-proclaiming, but I do, you know, I speak on life, and I've got a lot of experience, and, you know, we discuss God, and that's yeah, that's the point, really. That's how we allow the body to work. That's how we let dogs stay natural, is because God designed those two things, the human beings and the dogs. We didn't design it, we can't decide it, right? Designed to work. Those are 2 episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. That's our approach to things, okay? Allowing. It's on the back end. Take our hands off of things, and things just seem to work better. Surrender, that's what it's about. So, where clothing sits is the same for every human. Man or woman, tall or short, skinny or fat, any age or from any part of the earth, any time period to ever be, you're just a human being. Doesn't matter who you are. We have a natural waist, and that's above our hips, but below our lowest ribs, where we bend side to side at our spine, okay? That's where our pants sit for everybody, and then we don't alter our bodies by having pants on. With our pants at our natural waist, the angle actually needs to be slightly higher in the front than the rear, because that's just how our bodies would naturally be, vertical on Earth's gravity. And so with pants on, then we can keep our body's musculature contracted, activated, working, right? The human body can only ever actually work activated as a whole. And then we also have tops that we wear, and the seams on top of our shoulders need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders, because our shoulders will follow shoulder seams, and the shoulders only ever work behind the head. That's just where they connect mechanically, is up here to the spine of the neck and then the base of the rear of the skull from the top of the shoulder, right, the top of that shoulder blade. There's big bones on the upper back. So there you go, okay? The edge seams of our tops should just sit right at the very edges of the functionality of our shoulder. It's a joint of material, the top material to the sleeve material, and it's a joint of the body, right? The bones of the torso to the bone of the arm. Then we're not working around our tops trying to do things in life, and we can just mesh our shoulder seams at our shoulder joint. And when it comes to the lacing and stopping it at the ankle's flexion, this is what I'll focus on. This is the same thing as the shoulder seam. The seam sits right at the joint of the shoulder, while the lacing stops right at the joint of the lower leg bones to the foot. Okay, that's the ankle. So I'll show that as I do, right? You'll see what I mean. 2 things we have as prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company, just to not alter the body. In the Image Clothing Company shoelace technique. I already explained it, so yeah, found wherever you find us, and you'll see it here. But yes, and then we tie our shoes evenly over toward the center line, because we lace shoes, and that shapes the top of the upper of the shoe. But then we tie shoes, and that keeps them on, but that also really can affect rotations of the body. Okay, so we tie shoes over toward the center line on both sides so that they're even, and then our feet are neutral, straight out from those pinky toes, like our arms are neutral, straight out from those pinky fingers. Okay, so my ankle's clicking. Yeah, a lot of context as to why in the Image Clothing Company content. You know, universal patternings, the right-handed world is my right foot. I was tying shoes unevenly toward the right side on both feet until I was 24 years old. And yeah, so a lot of stuff in the right side of the body is what we address. Okay, Choose the Right is an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast where I talked about basically the only side just about that we need to do anything to when it comes to what we do, ridding chronic patterning and scar tissue from clothing imbalances, right? Ropes introduced to the body, like I'm saying, oversized clothing, imbalances in clothing, rotated seams, things in pockets, whatever it comes to being that alters our body, and then even just the right-handed world itself, apart from clothing, but clothing is also, to a degree, right-handed. Yeah, my right ankle, right, we talk about the right side of the body and all the scar tissue that gets built up there, and we really address it, you know, and allow the body to work in the Image Clothing Company's main side, right? That's what we do. And so, yeah, I was 24 years old before I stopped tying my shoes unevenly. So it was about 20 years of my body being rotated externally on the right side from just a knot, right? Being tied incorrect on the right side. So, yeah, that's what led me to found In the Image Clothing Company. along with some other things, and then get me to the point that I'm at now with the depth of understanding of how to allow the body to work. Okay, speaking out of personal experience, trial and error, prayer and revelation, a lot of stuff to get me to here. Okay, and I'm in this for life. Evan Strong as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. But secondly, to shoelacing, our other prerequisite is removing all tags from clothing. Anywhere a tag is placed in clothing, it's either causing a physical gap, changing the body's only working position, and or just not allowing musculature to activate, and then our bodies are being damaged. Trying to do compensation when everything has a role to play and no compensation can happen in the body. So this is a big thing. Compensation tries to happen when we have our shoelaces not stopping right where our ankles flex. This lawn got aerated. Yes. So these things are all over the grass, these little clumps of dirt, right? They pull these little things out of the grass to get air down in there to have the grass grow better. So I'm sitting on these little things of dirt. So, ankle flexion. We'll get into this, okay? We're here, we did the intro, let's talk about it because we need even ankle flexion, we need our lacing to stop right where our ankles will flex, right? Always stop lacing at ankle flexion. Always stop laces at ankle flexion. And then we start to say it like it's a mantra, right? Always stop laces at ankle flexion. This is what I'll do right now is I'll take from right where my ankle flexes, right? These are laced up to the correct height. See that? Where the shin bone comes down and meets the ankle at the top of where the foot comes down and meets the ankle. 2 bones in the lower leg with rotations from the neutral straight out from that pinky toe with a gripped arch, okay? We have internal rotation and external rotation at just the lower leg. And then when we rotate from the foot up to the hip, we have as a whole internal rotation and external rotation from the neutral, okay? Like the forearm, internal, external rotation from the hand to the elbow. That's like the lower leg, okay? And then from the hand to the shoulder, internal and external rotation. That's like from the foot to the hip, okay? Internal and external rotation. And both sides, right? It's the same thing, 2 sides to the body, and there you go. This needs to be here, okay? The stopping of the lacing needs to be exactly where the shin bone, which is the front bone of our lower leg, comes down, and then there's that meshing, okay? We take from the top of the big toe and come down the top of the foot to the ankle. We take from the knee joint, come down the lower shin, well, the lower leg bone. This is what we call our shin bone. And we meet where this kind of just like comes to a corner, right? The angle of our ankle. Check that out, okay? So that's where we stop our lacing. As you can see right there, because that's just where the motion is. Like I was saying, it's like the shoulder seams. They stop right where the shoulder motion is, if we can. Ideally, that's where our clothing sits, otherwise anywhere else in your body will be altered. Yikes, okay? Same with the lacing. We stop it right where the ankle flexes, otherwise anywhere else in your body will be altered, okay? So what I'm going to do is what I'm doing right here. I'll take this right shoe, Converse PF Flyers, man, just for the sake of giving credit. I got these shoes used at the Deseret Industries thrift store. I get it. I get the noise. I get it. I understand. I get it. So, my right shoe now is laced 2 eyelets higher on these specific shoes. And that's the thing with these shoes, is they're great to show this with because they do have a lot of eyelets. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 eyelets on each side of the upper of these shoes. So they're good to show this with because we can really adjust where the lacing will be stopping. Okay, so now here on my right shoe, I've laced it all the way up to the very top. Man, I just don't like to be yelling over the mower, but he's just doing his job, you know. So I've laced my right shoe up to the very top. I'm frustrated, man, with the noise. I have no say over it, but noisy. Definitely noisy. And my left shoe here, I put 2 laces or 2 eyelets lower. This lawnmower, man. Look at me sitting on my high horse as if I'm in charge of the park. Silly. So silly. All right. So, lacing too high, now we've restricted our ankle's motion from too high of lacing. Okay? I went 2 eyelets higher here on my right shoe than where my ankle actually moves and flexes at. Golly. I'm not mad at the person, I'm just mad at the situation because it's so hard for me to get these videos out. I understand I could film them anywhere, and I understand anybody's opinion on what this is like, but you know, as I've been doing what I've been doing to get these founding videos out for In The Image Clothing Company, I've run into things that only come up when I start filming. That's the whole thing about it. And you know, the whole thing about it is keep pushing on through. Actually, episode 167, the one I filmed last night of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, is titled The Storm Before the Calm. And I talked about a lot of this stuff I have to deal with. I'm not complaining, I'm really not. Again, I know I could choose literally any location I could possibly go to on the earth to film these videos. But if you were actually, you know, with me when it happened, you'd understand the context of what's really happening when I'm filming videos. And it doesn't happen when I'm not. I'm not kidding. Okay? So, the left foot here, 2 eyelets too low, below where my ankle will flex, that's a problem as well. Because this is the thing, it's pretty understandable to say, well, if you have laces too high, let's say you have like a 10-inch tall boot, then okay, yeah, you've got ropes across your whole ankle joint. That's probably going to be restricting your ankle's motion. But it's not only too high, it's also too low that will alter the ankle's motion. Because our arches grip the ground, right? And they elevate the height of a gripped arch. A video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. And when our feet grip arches, they need to be able to actually rise like this, okay? They grip the ground and they rise up. The hands and the feet are just about the exact same thing, and so I can show it with the hands as I can show it with the feet. And if we have lacing, here, my hand being my foot, my wrist being my ankle, and then my forearm being my lower leg, because that's really how it is, okay? The hands and the feet are just about the exact same thing. The wrists and the ankle are just about the exact same thing. And then the lower legs and the forearms are just about the exact same thing, okay? If I have my feet trying to grip an arch, and I have lacing on top of my foot that doesn't go all the way to the ankle joint, but it stops part of the way up the foot, when I cinch the knot down on the lacing on top of my foot, it will collapse my arch. Look at my left foot here, shoelacing 2 eyelets lower than would be where my ankle actually flexes. When I tie this and cinch it down, I'm actually cinching down on my gripped arch. Okay? So that's actually what's happening is even if your laces are not too high up your leg, they're still going to alter your foot by not allowing that arch to grip, okay? Because the rope will actually be cinching down on the arch and pressing it down into the ground, okay? So there's just one location where the top of the foot comes in and meets the lower leg bones as they come down right at that ankle joint, okay? And so what I'll do is actually just put my shoes back to the normal position, right? Keeping the lacing stopping right where the ankle flexes, okay? So tie shoes. I'll let you be able to see my shoes being tied easier than where I was there, okay? Over toward the inside as we show, okay? Over toward the inside, tuck underneath, there you go. Then you go the other direction, over toward the outside, okay? Yikes. Just opposites, okay? Over toward the inside first, over toward the outside next. Because this is the thing too, is if you have too long of laces, you just go back and forth, okay? So I tie little knots in the ends of my laces. I've discussed that before. It can quiet down those eyelids from tapping on your feet, right? The importance of quiet clothing, a video we have under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. And also then the laces always stay in the shoes, just laced correct. But if you have excess laces, just do the same thing again, right? Like the first knot, you go over toward the inside, and then the next time you just go over toward the outside, right? Just opposites, so we're just stacking knots each time we get higher. And then you're not stepping on your excess lacing. Converse seem to make laces that are very long, 6 foot laces. They're very long, okay? So here's my left foot, right? We tie shoes over toward the inside, tuck it underneath, okay? And then the next time you just go over toward the outside, tuck it underneath. But now here's the big thing, is when we have our laces actually stopping right at where our ankle flexes, then we can have just all the natural motion in our ankles, okay? You can have the best shoes on the earth, design-wise, or the shoes that are branded to be the best for your feet, right? Here we go again, right? Over toward the inside, and then over toward the outside, just opposing each time, right? One side inside, the next, or one time inside, next time outside, just so we keep the knots even. Then you are not walking on your laces. So it doesn't matter the design of the shoe, how good or not good it is for your body, and what they claim, the designers or the brand of the shoe, that the shoe is or isn't doing for your body. If you have the most ideal shoes, and we talk about what's required in shoes to not alter the body under In The Image Clothing Company's main site, right? You still absolutely have to stop your lacing exactly, or as close as you can get, like when I talk about shoulder seams, right? Right at the edges of our shoulders, or at least as close as we can get to that position. Same thing with the lacing, right at where the ankle flexes, or at least as close as we can get. Because if not, you just don't have your feet working normally with all the bones, tendons, muscles, and ligaments in there that are gripping arches inward, and a lot of motion and dexterity. And or you don't have your ankles just with their natural amount of flexion. And then it's not only flexion just in a straight line from those neutral pinky toes, but there's just so much motion. Because when our feet do things, if you will, it's not just pointing and lifting of the toes, but our feet can go out like this, they can go in like this. Our feet have all the rotations like I show, right? From the neutral, internal, up just the lower leg alone, and then external, okay? And all of this is happening right at that joint. Exactly where the joint would be is exactly as close as we need to get, at least, right, to where our lacing stops. Because the point is, depending on where your eyelets actually are placed in the design of your shoe, well, yeah, ideally we can just get it exactly there, but just do all you can, is what I'm saying, right? And there's just flexion. There's just rotation. But then that foot really just has so much motion. Look at this, I can roll my foot in, I can roll my foot out, and then there's the neutral. When we talk about where open hips come from, that video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company, I focused mostly on the feet. That's actually really at least one of the biggest places where our open hips will actually come from. Just meaning hip motion, right? The ability to do what I'm doing here rather than no motion in my ankle and my foot and my hips not being able to open, okay? So this all comes from this ankle joint just being unaltered. And look at all this motion in just my ankle moving right where the lower leg bones come and meet the foot, okay? And so that just has to be allowed to happen. It's like the shoulders. When I show the natural scapula position, that's a video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company, and there's just so much natural motion to the shoulder blades or the scapulas. So much, right? I don't do any kind of stretch, mobility, work routine, anything at all. Nothing besides just allow my body to work, because God designed it to work. Designed to Work is an episode title of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, and it just would, unless altered. It just should never be altered, the human body. But there's just so much natural motion. I mean, look at my feet, right? Sitting here, all of this is happening right where my lower leg bone meets the upper part of my foot, okay? Right there. All of this motion, I mean, look, there's a lot of functionality and motion in the ankles and the feet. And there's only one way the human body could ever work. There's only one way the human foot is shaped or can grip an arch inward, right? Opposing the center line. And there's only one position for the neutral of everything. And all that will only be able to ever happen, okay, if we stop our lacing as close as we can possibly get to the meshing of, I like the phrasing, the angle of our ankle, okay? So here we have a pretty deep dorsiflexion, or lifting of the toes, okay? Look, right where those laces stop. That's where that angle is. This other foot here, okay, we go into a pretty deep dorsiflexion. Where was I? More like this. There we go. Pretty deep dorsiflexion. It's just the same as lifting the toes, okay, right at where those laces stop, okay? The angle of the ankle, okay? So all the training, all the stretching, all the anything you ever want to try to do to your body in your life, period, and done, is an absolute waste of time. Nothing to do with me, no opinion I have, but the body's just designed to have motion, and we need to shape the weave of the ropes the way that our feet are shaped. There's only one way the human feet are shaped. All the mechanics in there just only work the way they do, on top, okay? And then we need to stop the lacing where that motion is, otherwise we'll just restrict the motion. And then the rest of our body will stiffen up and try to compensate, and yeah, the body will be just severely damaged, okay? Chronically, meaning just, forever, unless or until you stop restricting it, and then, we need to address what we need to get out of these chronic patternings and scar tissue throughout the body, to then allow it to just work again, from binding up and holding on so tightly for years, decades, within things like the ankles being restricted from lacing too high, or things like the foot stiffening up from lacing too low, and the foot's trying to really stabilize when the ankle joint isn't where the motion's happening at the lacing, but it's actually too low on the foot, let's say, like I was showing with this left shoe when I had them laced differently, height-wise. This left one was lower and this right one was higher by 2 eyelets each way. With this left shoe, when it was laced 2 eyelets too low, my foot, if I were to leave it like that, would just stiffen up and try to stabilize, because it's trying to hold the shoe on. It's trying to keep the shoe in place when it's just in only a location where it doesn't work. What I'm saying with that really is it's not only just shoes that are laced too low, but this is the problem with shoes that don't have laces. You know, I've talked about the importance of shoe laces. Not only lacing shoes that have laces correctly, the only way the human feet are shaped, but the importance of having laces so we really can have this nice tight shape, and then our foot's just as if there's nothing on it besides the weight of the shoe, which are ideally pretty light. See what I mean? There's only one way the human body could ever work. I say it often, man, because it's nothing to do with us as a company. We're just discussing the truth of God's universal human design. You can have your own very, very, very distinctly unique body, of course, right? If that's not an of course to you, then yes. I mean, deformities, amputations, birth defects, major surgeries. I mention these things where I do because, sure, you can have feet that work differently than most everybody else's, but there's this universal human design, you know? And there's only one way the feet could ever work, and it's just how would they if they were never altered? And so how do we get the body to work like that while we have protection on it being our shoes, okay? So, yeah, the importance of shoelaces. If you have shoes that just don't even have laces on them, often people have shoes that just kind of barely sit on their foot. And now, right, like I talk about, when we're walking or doing any motion in life where we lift our feet, either just lifting our toes, which is dorsiflexion, or actually lifting our foot off the ground, we're lifting our entire shoe off the ground from the top of our shoe. And what is that? That's our shoe lacing technique. I'm not only saying right now that's only in the Image Clothing Company shoe lacing technique. That's however your shoes are laced, or however the top of your shoe is shaped. Anything ever you could call a shoe that's placed on the human foot, we have to lift the entire shoe off the ground from the top of it. So, if we don't stop our lacing right at the flexion of our ankle, then we won't be just moving our feet naturally, but we'll be trying to lift a shoe that's maybe only part of the way up the foot from just part of the way up the foot. And then all the structure of the foot from that part of the shoe to the ankle isn't being allowed to have the same feel against the upper of the shoe, but then also it's just going to be altered. Not only does it not feel the same, but you'll just be using so many different muscles in different ways. Like people who wear what you call flip-flops or thongs, those shoes with the little piece between the big toe and the other toe next to it to pinch and hold those little thin flaps of shoe on. No, that's so damaging to the body, because we have to be able to dorsiflex our feet, lift our toes up is what that means, like I'm saying. And if that's not able to happen because we're scrunching our toes down to try to hold the shoe on our foot, we will damage our entire body to the tip of the head and the tips of the fingers from something like what you could call a flip-flop or a thong type shoe, okay? Even certain sandals, even shoes that just, you know, are pretty simple and minimal, like slip-on shoes that only go part of the way up the top of the foot. No, you have to lace your shoe all the way to exactly, again, as close as we can get to where that ankle flexes. Otherwise, you're just altering all the mechanics. Every muscle within the foot will just have to alter in the ways that it needs to. The actual tracking of the bones next to each other in the feet that have to clear each other and track in line. Otherwise, we just get binding up, and damage through the whole body from there. And everything. Your rotations will be limited. Your gripped arch will be trying to grip the shoe rather than just working to support the body if the location isn't at the natural body's motion of just the shoe upper stopping as close as we can get to exactly where the ankle flexes, like I'm saying, right? The angle of the ankle. So there you go. I love this video because it's like a noisy one for sure. I'm certain you could hear what I'm saying, but probably not so easily when it was like at peak loudness during this video of the surrounding sounds. I understand. But it's about the time period a lot. That's a big part of it. Why I'm making these videos the way that I am as of this time period. Just like, still at the founding time, just a little over a year into In the Image Clothing Company, to show congruency, that I was saying the exact same thing just as the founder, right? So In the Image Clothing Company as a whole was saying the exact same things since the very founding. These videos are documentations, but also, yeah, you could entirely get the information from this however you needed to. You'd be able to hear all that I said in here. So anyway, there you go. I'll walk around a little bit or move around some, whatever I do. I'll do something like that to show just the motion of, we want our shoes to be as minimal as we can. You don't have to be a minimalist. You don't have to have an opinion on what you think should happen, but our bodies are just designed to work with nothing placed on them. Them being the body just placed on God's earth. So anything we place onto the body that clothes the human being with something, that is clothing, right? That's what we talk about under In the Image Clothing Company, our 5-word name as a whole. And so the most minimal our shoes can be is going to make our bodies have the highest chance to just work. There's only one way they could. There's only one neutral position. There's only one range of motion to everything. Everything has to work activated as a whole. And if we're just trying to move our shoes around in our life by having our feet within them and like trying to flop them across the earth, like I'm saying with these flip-flop thong type shoes, you're just gripping the shoe rather than your foot just working. And so that's a beautiful thing about these specific shoes, these Converse PF Flyers. They're very light. They are very thin. It's just a canvas upper, and they're slightly narrower at the toe box than I'd like. Than my body would physically, mechanically like to grip an arch, right? The toes are slightly squished in here, and I mentioned the laces, right? Ideally round, but no give to laces either. That's what we talk about often. Okay, the importance of zero drop shoes, the term, just meaning the same height, heel to toe, no dropping underneath the feet, exactly flat on the earth as if we were just walking on the earth, like I'm saying. So these shoes are great in a lot of ways, and that's a big thing, is they are very thin, light, and minimal. Not as a, like type of term that we could have some community around, minimalism, but minimal as in just, they're just only what you need there. Not too heavy, not too thick, not too bulky. And yeah, so there you go. Okay, these shoes are great to show this with, and they're great in a lot of ways, actually, for the feet. They really are. Really, the biggest thing is if they were just slightly wider at the toe box, okay, for those toes to really just have all their motion. My pinky toes kind of get squished, and the big toe, because the toe box slightly curves in, the big toe is kind of, altered as well, slightly. But yeah, you know, they're great because you can see it. I like to say, you know, I love the visuals. Well, it doesn't matter if I like to say that or not. I say it often. I love the visuals. I love being able to sit here as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company and not only discuss things as if I've just read them out of a book, but discuss things out of personal experience in the depth that I do, to where there's no possible opinion or dispute to clothing being the only fix to human beings' physical problems, first off, but then also just that the body does work the way that I'm explaining it, because I can actually show it with my own physical body, and you can see it through what I call the gift of video. And so these shoes are awesome for that, because they're so thin. It's almost like a sock. It's almost just like I'm wearing a thick sock. As far as just the thickness of the shoe, you can see my feet very well as far as the outline, the structure, the shape, and what's really going on. Like when I do rotate my ankles all around like this, it's very close to as if I just didn't have shoes on, because there's very, very little bulk or thickness to the shoe. And so you can really see what I'm showing with the motion of the feet and ankles that then travels up to the tip of the head and the tips of the fingers. Okay, so I'll just move around a little bit. And just notice, if I couldn't have the angle of the ankle, right, being there, just right where the laces stop on the feet, then I couldn't sit in a deep low squat, for example, right? Something you can't actually physically train into. It's just the human body is a mechanical machine. It just has ranges of motion, and it just stops where it stops, right? And so the angle of the ankle is just something we need to allow to be there. And in this deep low squat, if my laces were higher, then it'd push me back here, because there'd just be something in the way restricting this motion. And if my laces were lower than right at the angle of my ankle, then what I'd have to do is grip my feet excessively unnaturally to try to keep my shoes on as I just move my ankle, right? Because the shoe would just be sitting in a location that's not where the motion of the ankle joint is if it was too low on the top of the foot. And then my feet would be, like I was saying, tensed up and altered, and then my whole body, I'd be falling back like this. That's why I'm showing that I'm falling back, right? So just that natural position, again, there's just so much motion in the ankles right at where that angle of the ankle sits. Okay, so a lot of rotations, a lot of movement in the ankles and the feet, but it's only ever going to happen right at that angle of the ankle. Okay. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so there you go. Okay, there's only one way the human body could ever work. And when it comes to shoe lacing, you know, if you know, because it's been the exact same since the absolute founding, and before then even, in the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, right? The only way the human feet are shaped, but then also, along with all the other things that I see are, if we can word it like this, requirements in shoe design, just to not alter the body. And we've got videos talking about specific things needed and required in shoes to allow the body to work. But also, yeah, just that position, it needs to be right at the ankle joint. You'll just be using so much extra and excess energy, and yeah, throughout the whole body, if the ankles aren't allowed to just flex where they naturally would. And then, you know, your pelvis or your hip structure will change to try to compensate. Your spine will then change to try to compensate. Your hips will, but also your shoulders will change their position to try to compensate. And your whole body will be damaged, right? Your head will come forward, your jaw's positioning will change. The entire body in all the ways that it just will. And we have hundreds of videos as of today's date just discussing Well, all of this, right? Allowing the body to work, things about the body itself, and then things about clothing itself, actually, and then the two together, the human body and clothing, right? The only fix to human beings' physical problems truly is the only thing physically placed on the human body. So check it out, right? A lot of information we give, but this is absolutely huge. And a big thing is, I understand the noise. I understand that it's not probably the easiest video to listen to or sit through, but the big thing is, like I'm saying, the information is here now. Placed, as of today's date, the 14th of October 2025, the visuals are here where you can see my feet and ankles moving. The documentation of me, Evan Strong, as the founder, and my physical body's transformation, truly, getting out of these chronic patternings and scar tissue and just watching it go as time progresses. On any 4 sides of In The Image Clothing Company, we do so much through video. Like I say, the gift of video. This is one of the reasons it's such a big gift, because you can see the truth of what we discuss here be manifested, if you will, or played out, or shown, through my own physical body as the founder, the one giving this information, the one always leading In The Image Clothing Company. I preach what I have practiced, right? I say it on the back end rather than practicing what I preach. I learn all of these things and then I talk about it, and there's no possible dispute to the things that I say when I discuss it as deeply as I do. And so they're here. The videos are here, even if they are like this, even if it is loud, even if it's not what you think is professional by worldly standards. Well, it's truth. It's eternal. It will never change. The human body will only and always ever just work how God designed it to, and all we can ever do is allow it to work, okay? So same things for dogs. We really allow dogs to work. We do so much, like I was saying, through that avenue of being. And so just check it out. Stick around. Like I say, stick around for the poodles. Purebred standard poodles is what we specialize in personally. But as I said, I'll just reiterate this because it's a very important point. It's not only about poodles. Our information applies to all dogs, okay? Just about all of our information we give on dogs does, okay? Across the whole earth. It'll help you as the owner, and then the information we give on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company will help you as a human being. Products will always be good, otherwise we would never sell any, okay? So, yeah, that's so funny to say like that. That's the only reason we'd ever have products, is if we had something that was actually needed, right? We live in an abundantly produced, modern, man-made United States of America, at least here, first world America, right? We have too much stuff in a lot of ways. So the only reason we'd ever put products out is because, well, Do Everything Clothing, Do Everything Dog products. Our poodles, we will always breed with the intent on having them be dogs that can be do everything dogs. That's a big reason for the standard size poodles and us specializing in that size of large dog, but then also just the poodle breed itself, and then the specific mother and father dogs we will choose to breed into our In The Image Clothing Company Poodles breeding program will be dogs that we're doing all that we can to have dogs that can be do everything dogs, go everywhere with us, hikes, be good family dogs, be good adventure buddies, be good in crowds, be good just, without so much attention on them at times, even though poodles are very clingy dogs almost always, right? Just do everything dogs is the point. Do everything clothing, do everything in our lives as a human being designed by God. Well, that's the ideal, right? That's why we're given this life, is to be able to live it. There you go with In The Image Clothing Company. That's what we do under our information. A lot of free modifications, like I'm saying, just so much free information on the anatomy of the body, allowing the body to work in all ways, not just through clothing, like I had said at the beginning there, right, as we do insights on life through music, through In The Image Clothing Company podcast with just discussions on where to turn when we need help, because we all know that we do, and often we don't know where to turn for it. God, Jesus the Christ, and we discuss him there, like I say, as he says that he is, to give context and just to point people to Jesus Christ, to our Creator, because we live in a very scared and lost and fallen world. And it's supposed to be like that, but even that in itself is something you need context for. Otherwise, it can be very scary. And so this is what we are. Raw, real, blunt, bold, In the Image Clothing Company, bro. I mean it. All right, so there you go. Always stop lacing at ankle flexion. I gave some insights on the tying of shoes. I've shown it before, right? Cross it, just opposing each side. Always start over toward the inside. And then the next time you can go up, over toward the outside, up, over toward the inside, up, over toward the outside when you have excess laces. Or you can cut them off, which I like to do, but if you don't want to cut your clothing, sometimes it's actually necessary, right? Certain free modifications we show. Yeah, I mean, clothing, it gets shipped across the earth nowadays in a way that it never possibly could have in the past, just through technology. And so we wear the same clothing designs basically everywhere on the whole planet. And all the imbalances that are in them, because there's just imbalances in them, are just altering every body's body, regardless if you care to care or not. Like In the Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification. In the Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification. You know, we have a lot of things talking about zippers, buttons, tags, right? Anything in clothing you need to modify to allow your body to work, you need to modify, or else your body will be being damaged, just because there'd be nothing placed on the body unless we placed something on the body. Okay? I love this video. I'll do a cartwheel, I'll cut this, and just know, regardless, I'll say this, I actually love high tops. I prefer high tops. High tops and boots, somewhere around like a 6-inch tall shoe, I love, okay? So we're not really restricting the ankles with high tops, which could seem like you would be, because there is material around the ankle higher than there would be in what you would call like a low top shoe, right? But we just have to stop the lacing, again, as close as we can get. The title of this video, right? Always stop lacing at ankle flexion. And then there's still motion. I mean, you can see it here in the video, right? I showed a lot of motion in my ankles. But I actually made a video titled The Benefit of High Tops under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company. And I prefer them, actually. And we'll give context on that just as time progresses, but I already have, like I'm saying, and I just did here as well. Yeah, because it's actually hard to stop the lacing exactly, or as close as we can get to exactly, where the ankle flexes, at the angle of the ankle. I love that terminology. That's really, really cool. It's just, you know, the alliterations. I'm a lyricist. I love words, right? Wordplay. That's really cool sounding to say. The angle of the ankle. But not only are high tops beneficial in the ways that I discussed them, but if you have a low cut shoe, the lacing might not even come all the way up to where the angle of the ankle is, right? The eyelets might not be all the way up there. Sometimes shoe uppers stop right where my lacing is stopped here, and then the eyelets of those low cut shoes sometimes are actually lower than the angle of the ankle, right? So your highest eyelet on a low cut shoe might not even get you all the way to your ankle's flexion angle, potentially. So that is one of the big benefits to high tops, actually, yeah. And also the slipping of the heel, sometimes that just almost can't be rid in low top shoes. You know, your heel will be slipping on the rear of your upper, just because there's not this nice wrapping of upper right at that flexion. I mean, that's the point. That's exactly what this video is, well, kind of, in a sense, the benefit of high tops as well, because you have to at least be able to get that high with the lacing. Otherwise, you just can't get that high with the lacing, right? So high tops can ensure that you'd have an upper coming high enough to where you can get the lacing high enough, right? And then not too high either, okay? So there you go. I'll cut this. Thank you. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Today is the 14th of October, 2025. stick around for the poodles. It will be absolutely huge. Letting dogs stay natural, keeping less dogs in shelters and more dogs at homes, health of dogs, breeding of dogs, a lot of things through video you can see and watch. You can watch the puppies be born, as long as we can actually catch the litters being born, right? I mean, we can't guarantee we could do that every time for sure, because, you know, sometimes you can't know exactly when the puppies will come out. But a lot of cool things like this, a lot of beautiful behind the scenes insights. Yeah, feeding of dogs, like I said. A lot of times you don't need to give your dog as much exercise as you might feel like you do, but it's a lot of it really is diet, you know, like human beings. Same thing. The goal is natural, always eating only natural foods, because anything unnatural just doesn't do anything but have to go through the human body. It actually damages the body because we have to use effort to process those things through our body, and then our body doesn't gain any benefit from anything that's not natural. It's unnatural. There's only natural until there's man-made things, and the human body's not man-made, and so we can only eat things that are not man-made as well. Okay, so thank you. Okay, goodbye. Thank you.